Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting. To be honest, I don't know too much about Relentless. I know he's kind of involved in the scene, pretty decent American Terran player. So I think it'll be a good match, and of course, I know Tim very well. I think PVT is probably his best matchup. He's I've seen him take a couple games here and there off of SPX. Folks have probably heard of him. So Tim's no slouch. Good PVT matchup, and I think it'll be good to see this.
Yeah, I actually had myself muted up until now, so I'm gonna redo what I said earlier, just really briefly, like the summarized version. I lost to Tim. I challenged Tim to face Relentless. Relentless accepted. Relentless is one of the better players in CPL 3. So is Tim. So I think that this is going to be an exciting matchup. Sorry for the audio confusion, guys. So let's begin. Yeah, the format of the match is best of five, first map fighting spirit, and then loser pick from the current map pool with one player veto, I believe. And we have Tim at the bottom, at the top right. Sorry, if I was playing as Tim right now, I would have definitely placed my pylon in the wrong place because I thought that he was in the bottom right, but he's in the top right. He's the blue Protoss, aka Tim.
And then at the spawning at the 5 o'clock, yellow Terran, we've got Dim Sum, aka Relentless.
Yeah, so Relentless is a really high APM player. He is beautiful with his vulture harass, with his mind laying, with his control from my experience. So as a Protoss player that's, like kind of like in the mid ranks around like, like BA level, I find that that style of play is really hard to deal with. The heavy vulture play, the APM tax that they put on you with vulture play. Do you have any suggestions about that? Like before we even get into the game, Strugo.
Yeah, so struggling against Vulture Harass, drop play, kind of more aggressive style Terrans, I think it's really important to make sure you're on top of your observers. Make sure you've got some scouting pylons set up. Make sure you've got pylon walls. Make sure you're Nat. You've got kind of a pylon wall there with like a two gap. Block it with dragoons, right? You want to be active in all these senses, and really looking for Tim to execute on these fronts, especially given Relentless potential style.
Yeah, pylon wall is absolutely crucial in the natural and the third base in almost any matchup. And this barracks placement to me seems like awfully confident. It's kind of like Relentless kind of knows Tim's style, knows that it's not going to be a zealot harass or a proxy two gate. This kind of barracks placement tells me that this player knows what he's dealing with, right? Because this barracks placement seems almost nonsensical to me. It's not walling up his ramp, which would be over here. It's not SimCity'd with a depot. It's just kind of like there.
Yeah, and what's interesting in this position on FS, you can block with your racks and a factory. So a lot of times on this position, you'll see Terran just doing that nice wall, regardless of the build that they do, because why not, right? You're getting a free wall. So interesting that he's not kind of taking advantage of that.
And we're gonna see him do a a gas scout. I think maybe it was rack scout or gas scout. Either way, he's gonna find Tim very early on in this game. He's gonna know exactly what Tim is doing right now, and what Tim's doing is really, really standard. It looks like he was gonna go for a dragoon scout. He's going for dragoon. Then range should be coming up shortly, and this I wouldn't say it gives like it doesn't give an advantage to Dim Sum to know this early on, but it gives him some peace of mind. He knows that he's not going to get cheesed anytime soon. He has the
Yeah,
vision of the base.
absolutely. First scout's always good, and knowing Tim, I'm potentially expecting a 21 Nexus here. So it seems like Relentless might also know that, and that's why he didn't care to
Hmm.
really put his racks in another spot. Like you said, Jealous, right? He think he knows who he's playing and what kind of build Tim's up to, and
Hmm.
lo and behold, we do see a 21 Nexus coming up from Tim. One thing I will note is 21 Nex typically you do want to pull one or two probes off of your gas. You'll actually get it's a couple of seconds. I know it's not a big point. We've always talked about this. The Nexus timing isn't
Hmm.
everything, but right, if you're going to do the 21, that's my suggestion. Take two probes off gas, and then you get the 21 Nexus just a bit faster.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed that Tim does is that he said that he used to pull probes off of the gas in order to get that more economic opening, but he's recently been keeping probes on the gas in order to get that earlier robo and observer timing to see exactly what Terran does in response. So it's just kind of like a variation of the extant build that everyone's familiar with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a bad choice.
yeah, here's the robo coming up. I mean, he is floating quite a bit of gas, but he does need it for Dragoon production from two gateways. He does need it for the observatory and then the observer right after that. So there's definitely, how should I say, some things involved that are worth considering when looking at the standard 21 next build. He's going to go for a much safer but a slightly less economical version of the build.
Yep, and here we go. We've got an FD coming out from Relentless. Tim's Dragoons are in kind of a weird position. They're not grouped together. The one to the left going up the center of the map now. Shields are pretty much gone. But he's got two. He still has both. That's good. And his fourth one on the way. So smart play by Tim, waiting for kind of all four and then doing a better engage. Well, three right here, at least. Fourth one coming down the net.
Yeah, I have to ask real quick, Shugo, do you have the stream up by any chance? Like, are you viewing the stream at the same time?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so the game is playing fine, right? Because I moved away from my computer screen, which has the view of it. Like, the game is shown on the screen right now, right?
Yeah, it's all fine. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And this was handled really well by Tim. I mean, 21 Nex is famously good against FD and strong FD pushes, way better than 28 Nex is, in my opinion. But to have that kind of a dominating opening against a FD opening, it feels like Tim is slightly ahead at this point as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. He lost two goons. Third one just now to a mine. That one, the fourth goon there going up to his third is a little weak. So I mean, he didn't totally destroy it, but he handled it. That's how I'd rate it. As far as who I feel is ahead right now, Tim's ahead, right? He pulled off a 21 Nexus. He's going for a really fast third Nexus. He's ahead, but it's not anything crazy.
Yeah, it's not a game-changing lead, but it's definitely something that Dim Sum. I feel like if I was the Terran player in this case, losing my first tank like that, not doing really any economic damage, I would be a little bit concerned about going into the future. And he doesn't really have a scout off at this point. I mean, now he finds out that the third Nexus is right there. He's laying a mine in order to try to crawl up the... Ooh! Actually, very nice. I mean, if the Vulture didn't die there, he could have hopped right in there, killed the probe, you know, gotten the full scout off to double check the fact that the Nexus is actually there. So, good play by Relentless, but Tim is still on top of it. He even added a Forge relatively early in my opinion, because generally you want to kind of hold off on Forge until you get Stargate and Arbiter in my opinion. You want to add the Forge after that and start getting your +1 then, but he is playing super safe right now, in my opinion. Maybe cognizant of Relentless Vulture heavy style.
Yeah, I do think the Forge is a little early, not necessarily something he needs right now, especially no drops present. I mean, he had a good lead. Maybe he's just thinking, hey, well, I'm so ahead, I'll just play real safe. It is what it is kind of thing. But then, you know, his observers has seen everything now. He's spotted the command center. He sees two fact. So he's Tim setting himself up for success right now. He took that really early third. I mean, he was a little risky, if anything, in my opinion. He took that third base before his observer got to Relentless's base and confirmed factories, confirmed CC. What if the Terran was going for fact, right?
Yeah.
After a failed FD, it's not crazy uncommon to jump into like a 4 fact with 1 machine shop and 3 vultures and just keep slamming your opponent. So
yeah,
little risky by Tim, but I feel that it's obviously paid off.
Yeah, what happens is that when you lose your FD as a Terran, what I feel like is that you expect the Protoss to respond greedily, right? So a 4 fact could have definitely been in the cards for Relentless here. He could have known that the fast third is coming up, and he did confirm it with the first vulture to a degree. He definitely confirmed it now with the next 2 vultures. Could have done a little bit better by hiding behind the minerals here. Could have denied mining outright here, but the probes caught it. The the pylon block came up, at just the right time to make it inconvenient for the vultures to run in. But at the same time, Relentless is going for that fast third command center, and Tim should be aware of it just by the factory count in itself. 2 factories, 2 add-ons generally speaks of a fast third. But Tim's not making any moves. Ooh, lose the Dragoon there, I'm sorry. But he's not making any moves to deny the third.
Yeah. So Tim just lost a couple goons there. I would like to see Tim kind of be more active on the map a little bit, clear the mines out, and then it's always good on FS at least to have another observer at the Terran third, and even another observer kind of in that midway point between the Terran's Nat going to the third, like where his
Yes.
tank, because then you can set yourself up as a Protoss with a shuttle and goons, and you can really effectively slow down a Terran's third on FS. Would encourage a lot of players to really incorporate that into their strategy. It's tough. It's not easy for a Terran to, fight up that. Relentless did a good job here, though, right? He's obviously experienced. He knows I got to wall this off. Protoss or common to bust the third on FS, that type of thing. So good wall by him, playing real safe, and he's got up to 5 factory now. So we're looking at a pretty standard good macro game here. Up to
Yeah.
his 4th Nexus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. Tim, instead of opting to deny the third from Terran, which is a stylistic choice and one that is definitely recommended, as you mentioned, is definitely what I opt for always. I usually keep a Dragoon on the ramp going up to the third on FS, and I keep that observer right here in between the natural and the third to make sure that I know when the Terran's moving out. But Tim is very content to just play this out as a macro game, as you said. He sat back while the mines had map control. He allowed the third base that he knew was coming up, and in response, he's getting his own 4th base. I feel like this just is a mark of confidence from Tim. He's saying, I can beat you in this macro game. And as we know, like, Terran scales, in my opinion, way better than Protoss does into a later game because of the upgrade advantages and, like, how scary 3-3 is. So Tim is basically saying to me right now, and to Relentless, I'm okay with you having 3-3 mech. I'll still beat you anyway. That's what he's kind of saying, right?
What? Yeah, I mean, sort of. And one thing I'll also comment is on we busting the third. It's a stylistic thing. I agree, right? If you're, I'm not saying that's the better option or the right option. If you want to take a 4th base like Tim did, that's fine. That's up to you. Just know the pros and cons of each of those 2 scenarios, whichever route you take, because I think both have their place. Tim's Dragoons at the bottom at the 7. I'm not sure what he. A misclick of some sort.
Maybe he's anticipating the. When he first moved there, I thought he was anticipating the fast 4 base from Terran, which is relatively rare on FS, to be honest. But I think the second click, like he was trying to send his Dragoons out. I think he must have misclicked and left them inside this little corner here. But in exchange, Relentless did scout the fact that the 4th is coming out. Very slick play by him by running the vultures around this way through the third. He laid a mine on the ramp, killed the Dragoon, even though there's an observer there, and now he knows for sure that it's a 4 base Protoss confirmed. So this does delay the Arbiter timing somewhat. If we're at 12 minutes, still no Arbiter Tribunal from what I can see. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just found it. It was up on top. Yeah. So 2 Stargate Arbiter. Arbiter's actually almost on the way out, so it's not actually that delayed. But he could have had it earlier if he didn't go for the 4th base, in my opinion. He's actually going for a 5th base now. Very strong play from Tim here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and let's just take note of Tim's kind of play. So Terran in this game opted for a 2-1 3 base, pretty standard build that I'm sure we're all familiar with. Tim, on the other hand, right from the Protoss perspective, hey, what does a Protoss need to effectively fight that Terran army? I think Tim's handling it well here. He's got his arbiters, but the key here as well, and I see a lot of players missing this, is the storm.
Yes.
He's got Storm ready to go. So it's not just a matter of having Goons and Zealot and 1 Stasis, right? You need to have all of that, maybe 2 or 3 Storms and a Stasis to really effectively fight that 2-1.
Yeah, and this is something that is probably underused partially because of the fact that we rely so heavily on pro gamer and high-level play, right? A lot of high-level Protosses don't do this also simply because they're too pressed by their opponents. The Terrans that they're facing are simply better. No offense to Relentless at all, but like the Terrans that you're facing, you don't have the gas, you don't have the time to get the Templar. You expect those Templar to get sniped. You expect the Storms not to be able to hit properly, so on and so forth. But especially at this level, or really at any level, I feel like Storm is such a huge boon to any engagement that Protoss can have against Terran mech. Templars are a low priority unit, which means that they don't get auto-targeted by vultures or siege tanks in an engagement. And as a result, they can actually do a ton of damage. So I really like Tim for adding these Templar into his composition. I actually can't find them right now, but I know that they're there. I saw at least one spawn the gateway out of the gateway. And yeah, definitely agree with you there. I really like this play from Relentless as well, pushing with the vultures here, denying mining from the 5th base already.
So what's your thoughts now in terms of how the game's formulating? What do you think that Tim needs to do? What do you think that Relentless needs to do here?
I think Relentless's push needs to do a lot of damage here. I mean, Tim is set up very well for a good late game situation for himself. Relentless on 3 base against 5 base Terran, that's kind of a standard situation that you would find yourself in. It's all going to come down to how the first push is handled by both players. Who denies what, whether the push does a lot of damage, whether it takes out a base. But at the same time, I mean, Relentless has been kind of like sending out these vultures and doing damage with them. If you just send out vultures and don't do damage with them, it's a net loss. It weakens your push later on. But he's been doing a ton of economic damage with these vultures so far.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job of some harass here and there. I mean, look at Tim's main at 11, right? There's not even any more probes left. Two probes left. But
Yeah.
on the flip side, as you mentioned about the vultures, now look at Relentless's main army. It's very, very tank heavy. Where's the support? I have a feeling that when he rolls out, he doesn't have the necessary support with those tanks. Tim's
Yeah.
got a very heavy zealot army with a couple of storms in there. I mean, let's see how this goes, but I'm thinking Tim might have the upper hand composition wise. I think Relentless stretched a bit, kind of giving away too much of his support with the Volt. So curious to see how this battle goes. And now we've got a recall here. Wow,
Yeah.
so good timing by Tim.
Yeah, I was about to say perfect timing by Tim. It's just when the Terran was seeking to move out. And I was actually going to compliment Relentless about this because he wasn't just like, like 1A, 2A, 3A going across the map with his push. He was kind of like slow moving it out and looking to secure more of the map defensively. But right as he was doing that, Tim does a recall. And this recall is so far, I would say, paying dividends. It's killed some of the units coming out of the factories. Hasn't cost Tim that much. And we do see a stasis on the ramp as well. This is a really cute trick, and we're going to see Relentless do the SCV bug to move those. I thought we were going to see it, but what you can do is you can send the SCVs to mine from your natural, and then you press stop, and that moves the stasis units out of the way. But this is definitely going to slow down Dim Sum's, aka Relentless's, momentum quite a bit. There's still units in here killing SCVs, being annoying as hell. There's another Arbiter here, like there. It's definitely flustered Relentless a little bit here.
So here we go. Here we got the main move out from Relentless. Some really good storms hitting, really weakened a lot of those tanks. And I mean, not too bad. Of course, Tim didn't send his whole army. He had like a whole group of Dragoons still waiting in the back there. So a little sloppy there. Though a lot of the tanks are now damaged. He's down to about 12 tanks there. So, and he's got another about 8 or so in the back. So Relentless still has quite a strong army. 2-1. The third attack upgrade is halfway done by Relentless. Relentless is doing pretty well with the vultures again. He's, at Tim's 9 o'clock, and now he's pushing up. So looking good for Relentless right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the recall did do some damage. It did do some destructive work, but I feel like Tim didn't quite take enough of an advantage off this. He tried to take a 6th base behind it. It's being denied by vultures right now a little bit. The Dragoon is going to clean it up. But, it was one of those recalls that, just slowed down the Terran push. It delayed the inevitable, more or less. And I don't feel like Tim was prepared for the follow-up, which is the actual push. He did not have enough Zealous to make those 12 tanks, as you said, with no support, absolutely melt. If he had some more Zealots in the mix, he definitely could have done that.
Right. I do want to just talk about here sort of replenishment, right? So Tim's gateway count isn't ideal for this point in the game.
Absolutely not.
when he recalled and he lost that pretty much maxed army, right? He should have been maxed again within about 20, 30 seconds, but it wasn't the case. And that gave Relentless an opportunity here to actually push across the map. Once again, I think Relentless is actually kind of, I mean, it's pretty much a stalemate, but I'll give the upper hand slightly to Tim because once you reset a Terran's tank count, it's tough. But the
Yeah.
only reason Relentless lost this battle, in my opinion, was, as we mentioned in the past, the lack of support.
Yeah.
Tim actually wasn't even maxed out in that battle. Tim just had
Yeah, it was
a
like
good combination.
160 to 150, I think, and but the stasis were just so perfect. He caught at least 7 tanks in those stasis, and now he still has the tanks here. We see another Arbiter coming in, but he doesn't have the energy in order to cast that second storm. So actually, Relentless is going to secure this position, and this is actually quite a scary position to be in. Tim does not have the requisite gate count at his other main. I would expect at least 8 gateways at this base at this moment in order to be able to effectively flank this kind of position from Terran. So Relentless is actually not in a bad spot despite the initial losses, despite the recall and everything. This game is still anyone's. And what you said earlier about the replenishment, Tim was floating 3,000 minerals for a long time there. He could have, if with a greater gate count, he could have definitely done more about spending his money effectively and denying this push that's in his natural right now, basically.
Right. Tim needs, so typical gateway count for a Protoss at this point in the game, right? You'd want to have about 12 in your main, and you'd want to have 12 gateways in the other main. So at Tim's 11, and he's only got 3 gates there, right? So really slacking on the gates there. Now, one mistake and one thing that's going well for Tim here is Relentless has not tried to take a 4th base yet.
Yeah.
So while a 3-base Terran is strong, you need to get a 4th base behind this and really start sort of splitting the map in a sense, because this position that Relentless has, I mean, sure, you've got a little contain 5-tank contain going here, but it's not like he has his initial massive 2-1 army. Like this isn't much. Like he has to expect that that Protoss should be breaking out of this. So you need to start planning for the longer term game beyond this. Take a 4th, take a 5th, start splitting the map kind of thing.
Yeah, splitting the map on FS is part of this reason why this map is slightly Terran favored in the matchup, more so than you would expect. It's because splitting the map on this map, FS in particular, is really beneficial to the Terran player. And is he going to get this vessel? Yeah, that's a nice pickoff from Tin, but actually, Relentless is going to go for the middle, and it's immediately scouted by the Arbiter here. At the same time, I should note that I love what Relentless did here when he was pushing up to the 12 o'clock third base right here. He killed the Nexus, he killed some probes. He's pretty much denied this base entirely so far, just from his positioning out here with just relatively few units. And now we see Tim sending a Zealot out to just kind of explore, see how many siege tank shells he's going to get hit by, know what kind of army is out there for him. And honestly, I feel like he's close to being able to bust this right now.
Yeah, and here he goes. He's going for the bust now. So Tim in a good position. One thing I do like Tim, what he's doing. He even took the 7 o'clock base, right? So no fear. Just it's the right play as a Protoss. You have to know that in these types of games, these situations, Terran will get some of your Nexus. It's just the way the game goes.
Yeah.
Tim's not panicking, right? You have to expect, like, you fighting a good solid 2-1. It's not going to be all dandy and you just roll them over. It's unlikely. It's actually more likely that they get across the map and kind of really like get one of your bases or get a Nexus. So don't panic in those in those instances. And I think Tim's doing a good job at not panicking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, the command center in the center gets denied. I think the SCV was actually killed by an Arbiter while it was building the command center. So Relentless is still out of a 4th base, but at the same time, he did kill another base from Tim at the 9 o'clock. So Tim technically working off of 4 bases against a 3-base Protoss this whole time and being forced to remake these Nexi is like he's ahead, and the supply definitely shows that to some extent, but he's not as ahead as he might want to be at this point in the game. I feel like the Terran, yes, I was about to say this, he should just take Terran's natural third, because this is the advantage of being clockwise from the Terran on FS. You can take their natural third as part of your map split.
Yep, I agree. This is the right 4th base that Relentless needs, though very, very late in the game, he's really lacking on income right now. So he needs to play smart now, meaning don't waste all these vultures that he's been really kind of, in some sense, wasting throughout the game.
Yeah.
Uh, right, that's why he lacked the support army, etc. So I think now he really, with his almost three, he needs to play really defensive, lock in this fourth base, and let the Protoss kind of mess up, for
Yeah.
lack of better words.
Basically, but we're gonna see Tim do a move in here. There's not a lot of mines protecting the tanks in there. The mines are actually right on top of the tanks. Decent stasis here, another decent stasis here, and another stasis. With 3 stasis, this position is gonna be overrun by the Protoss here. Very nice engagement from Tim here. He recognized the situation for what it was. Is that Terran is creeping into a safe fourth base, and by denying this army defensive position a little bit, he has done what I would say not a lethal blow, but definitely a significant blow. Look at the supplies, look at the economy from both players. The Terran mined out all except for his third base, which is very low on minerals. The fourth base is now in a very suspect situation. You know, like this fourth base is flimsy at best at this point. And as you said earlier, he's secured the other main, so 3 mains for Protoss is a good look for Protoss.
Yeah, it's looking grim for Terran right now. I'm not seeing much else he can do. His tank counts keep getting reset, and he doesn't have the resources right now to really fund another big cycle of tanks. And now Tim's kind of just going at the fourth base, and there goes even more tanks on top of that. So
Yeah,
it's looking grim now. Tim's still sitting on almost a 4K bank. Tim getting a little sloppy with his units here, but I actually think Tim's perspective, the Protoss perspective here is, hey, I've got the whole map.
yeah,
I'm just going to start 1A, 2A him. I know he doesn't have much.
yeah. I have to give props for that recall. This is something I talked about recently in the El Master Beginner Discord. Recalling one single Templar with your army is fantastic, especially when you're doing it on a crucial base like this, because first of all, like I said earlier, the Templar are not a high priority unit. They're never going to get auto-targeted by anybody if there's other units there. And he used that Templar to both storm the SCVs and storm the tanks that were here. So very nice play by Tim, and you have to feel for Dim Sum here. I mean, he's struggling to hold on to this base. He lost all of the tanks there. There's one more tank just kind of like idly moving around outside of it. He has only mines to defend and maybe a turret coming in. And as the situation continues, I mean, Protoss feels safer and safer as he controls this many bases. The longer this goes on for, the longer that there's not a push denying any expansions, the worse Terran's position is.
Yeah, and I mean, we're sitting at 5 Protoss mining bases against 1 Terran base, right? So
Yeah.
it's not looking good, and I'm expecting maybe a GG from Relentless coming up soon.
Yeah, almost an 80 supply lead. It's not unheard of to see like a 30 or 50 supply lead at around this point in the game, where it's like 180 to 150 or 180 to 16, even 140 even, right? But 180 to 100 just speaks volumes about the Terran's position in this game right now. He's not comfortable anywhere on the map. He's barely holding on to his fourth, where he's investing all of his tanks. He's trying to push up here, but he's a little bit lacking in the multitask in order to do so. And even if Tim loses this base, he has so many others to choose from where to run his probes to. He might lose this Nexus, but does it really hurt him? I think no. He has gateways in 3 different bases at this point. He is very well situated into going into this late game.
Yeah, I think right now it's kind of like, hey, well, that's 2 more tanks that you lost to help defend your fourth base. I mean, right now you see the way Dim Sum's defending his fourth base. It's tough to break, but you see Tim, I guess he's realized, hey, well, I'm not going to try and bust that. Let me just go straight for the main. You've got nothing. Let me just end the game now. Right? There's sometimes you have to think, like, why would I try and bust the fourth with 15 tanks posted up there? Let me just hit the weak point. I'll knock out all his factories, knock out all his production. Then that's game, right? So I think Tim made a good choice here, not trying to feed the Terran at the fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great game sense from Tim, knowing that given the amount of units that Dim Sum has lost, given the amount of aggression that he's tried to put on in different bases, there's no way that there could have been a sufficient defense at the natural in order to hold off this push. And admittedly, I mean, Dim Sum did a great job of trying to hold on to this base, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, now that all these units are in here, Tim is just, I mean, Tim is just going to kill everything that's coming out of the factories as soon as it comes out. There's no way to resituate yourself with the tanks in the right places, with the mines in a good place, and that's going to be the GG right there.
Yeah, it was the first pretty good game of their series so far. So I'm sure we'll have some other good games coming up. But I think the main points here from the Terran perspective were, I believe Dim Sum wasted too many vultures in the early and mid game. He didn't have enough to support his final 2-1 push. I felt that his Arbiter defenses were a bit weak, lacking general turrets, lacking kind of vessels in the key spots to quickly EMP. And then I think the last key point for Dim Sum was very, very late fourth and not realizing, hey, I've pushed out. Let me not try to contain the Protoss. Let me try to split the map and go for a fourth and a fifth and move into the even longer term game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Definitely the fourth in the center was very ambitious. It was a very tenuous grasp on the map that he had at that point. He only had like 4 tanks outside the Terran Natural. So definitely agree with you on that. Relentless could have gone for a better fourth base, but I'm honestly really excited for the rest of this series because that was a high level play given the context. Let's say, so obviously Tim is a great player, but Relentless definitely proving the fact that he can at least give some trouble to Tim. He can at least,
Absolutely.
yeah, he can at least make Tim worried at some point. He can at least tax Tim a little bit. I mean, taking out that many Nexus was a good move. Taking away that many probes was also a good move. And Tim's in the chat, actually, he said, well, I figured he was going to hold up all his units at the fourth, since he loses if he can't hold it. Yeah, so Tim with the perfect read there. Great play by him.
Yeah, absolutely. So based on seeing this game, and we can kind of jump into game 2 here, but what's your kind of thoughts for Dim Sum to make a comeback here? What do you think he needs to do the second game? Are you thinking another 2-base, a 3-base 2? I mean, personally, I'd love to see him kind of say, hey, well, I know Tim's a 21 next kind of guy. Let me hit him with a strong 2-fact, or let me hit him with some drop play. Like, I'd love to see that out of Relentless.
Honestly, I feel like even though Tim is a great player, obviously, as we've said before, I feel like he's might be mechanically disadvantaged from against Relentless. Relentless, in my experience, and I'm slightly faster than Tim just based on what I've seen, doesn't make me a better player, but Relentless is way faster than me. I'm slightly faster than Tim, and if Relentless Vulture play can annoy me to the point where I lose games consistently to him, I feel like he might have a chance with just some like very aggressive Vulture play, kind of similar to what he was doing, but maybe more measured. Maybe better choices in where he's going to invest that Vulture play. Tim played kind of safe that game. He played greedy and safe at the same time with the early Forge, as we mentioned, with the early Cannon, as we mentioned. I think he was just aware of that Vulture play, but I feel like Relentless still has more in the bag in terms of that. And Relentless is going to pick Cross Game as his Game 2 map. Let's get into it, and we can talk about the what you think about this map from a competitive standpoint in PvT.
Yeah, so I think 2-player maps in general are tough PvT matchup for the Protoss, because it's hard for Protoss sometimes to find good engagements and find good angling and really try to get flanks on the Terran, right? I think Terran can split the map more easily, more readily, and it can be a good map for Terran to even do a timing attack as well.
Absolutely.
On this map, the third base, even for Protoss, so where Tim is, the third base would be, the base that's at the 3 o'clock for the third base. That's kind of easy for Terran to push to in some sense. So interested to see what Tim does, right? On this map particularly, I wouldn't go for like a fast third play like we saw Tim do on FS, so
Hmm.
interested to see. And I mean, already I say that, and we see Tim has a probe going out to the side of the map. So we're gonna see some early zealot pressure here from Tim, and I think not a bad opening for this map for Protoss, and especially given the fact that hey, people think of me as a 21 next player in PvT. Let me show you that I don't need to just do that. I can hit you with some aggression up front. So
Hmm.
Tim showing some versatility here in game two.
Yeah, and again, just for anyone that is just tuned in, Tim at the top right as the red Protoss, Dim Sum aka Relentless at the bottom left as the green Terran. But yeah, absolutely, he's going for a proxy 2 gate here. So definitely all in with this choice. And I like this choice on this map, particularly because of the factors that you said, where a split map scenario definitely benefits Terran on a two-player map. I mean, we've seen this time and time again on maps like Blue Storm, for example, or Destination, where Terrans just win the waiting game in the late game. So I feel like Tim is trying to preempt that by taking advantage of the fact that it's a reverse ramp map. He can easily go into 2 gate Dragoons behind the Zealot pressure if it goes that long.
That's right. And I think Relentless, I mean, I don't think Tim chose this because he doesn't wall or whatever preconceived notion he has. But I wonder if it does have something to do with it, right? Because Relentless didn't even take the wall on that FS position where pretty much I feel every Terran should just take advantage of it.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, hey, if this man's not going to wall in that position, not going to wall or do anything like that on this map, so let me just hit him with this sneaky old 2 gate and try to end the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first Zealot's already on the way. There's only one Marine out here, and he almost got pocketed by the probe and Zealot combination. And again, the factory is a little bit far away. I feel like this is a suspect factory placement. I don't think that Relentless was prepared to defend a factory being built, given his SimCity right here. Ooh, and a forward pylon. Is this going to be shield battery, or is it going to be a third gateway? I'm really curious what Tim is thinking here. What do you think, Shugo?
I think Tim's probably just going to get a shield battery and just be real safe about it. Well, no, look at his main base. He's got a forge. He's going to build cannons.
Oh my god, this is so brutal at this point, yeah. And it should be noted that after my match against Flash for the win, what Tim suggested was to place the proxy gateways outside the Terra Natural, and he avoided the obvious spot, I'm going to say intentionally, and placed them in a place where you can't even scatter. But yeah, with these 2 cannons coming up, this factory is not going to go up at any point, anytime soon. Cannon's almost done. Even with the decent SCV Marine Micro, the Terran economy is just put to shit at this point. And he's in a tough spot. Oh, he kills the cannon though. Major props there. And he kills the Zealot that was out there as well. If he kills this cannon... Oh, but the factory's not coming out right now. The factory's not being built. So many SCVs are lost. This is a tough spot.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I mean, even if we ask ourselves, hey, well, how could he have better? How could the Terran have better handled this? It's tough, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
facing you because as a Terran, you initially just think, oh, when you see the first Zealot, oh, it's just 1 gate. Like I'm just gonna keep playing normal, just some basic micro, and then it's like, oh crap, there's 2 more Zealots here. Now it's 3 Zealots, and it's oh wow, I'm facing a 2 gate. You
Yeah.
gotta throw down a panic bunker. Like it's tough. Like this is
It snowballs so badly for Terran here. I mean, look at the amount of SCVs that he's lost. He's down to like 5 SCVs against a fully functional 1 base economy from Tim. Tim could even think about, taking an expansion before Cybernetics Core here if the game goes on. The factory is done, but he doesn't even have money to make a Vulture. Vulture and Immaculate Micro would be the solution here, but I don't think I don't think he's gonna be in that position. There's still gonna be SCVs lost. And Tim could honestly, yeah, just focus the SCVs. Yeah, there we go, GG. He could just focus the SCVs and know that he's doing significant damage, even if all the Zealots die to the bunker fire. So, very well played by Tim there.
yeah. I think from Terran perspective, right? Just what can you do? It's just honestly, you just need to have better micro. You need to have good mechanics. I think in 2-player maps, it move you to scout faster. I don't think Relentless tried to, right? Like it's a 2-player map, right? People could do anything.
Hmm.
So scouting quickly on a 2-player map can help you, obviously, right? If he would have scouted more maybe after the racks, for
Yeah,
instance,
absolutely.
he would have noticed and kind of been ready for it. So, scouting faster, microwing better. I think the this goes to show that depot placement and those types of things for Terran are very, very key. You have to be prepared.
Yeah, Rack Scout I think is a must in two-player maps because of, as you said, there's just so much area to cover in terms of proxies, and it's kind of like the staple of the map, right? So on a map like Circuit Breaker, right, in this situation, there's so much unbuildable terrain and there's so many bases, but there's so many options for where the opponent can spawn. On two-player maps, most of the terrain you will find is going to be buildable, and that's because the map is just generally going to be smaller because it's made to accommodate a two-player situation. And as a result, two-player maps are going to have a lot of places where you can proxy. So the best way to find a proxy is by scouting your opponent. It's not by finding the proxy itself. We don't have Flash game sense where he finds Bisu's proxy gateway like within the first second or some shit like that, right? Of it coming up. On two-player maps, you have to scout their main, and then you infer the information from their probe count, their technology, what they have at their main, so on and so forth. But going into game three, we're going to Circuit Breaker, which is like a super standard map. So I guess Relentless kind of abandoned whatever plan he had for the two-player map. He's going to go back to a super standard map, and I have to say that with Tim being the higher rated player, choosing a standard map like this is definitely in his favor. Well, Relentless choosing this map is in his favor.
Yeah, potentially yes, but based on what we saw in the Fighting Spirit game, Relentless can do a pretty solid 2-1 3 base play. Circuit Breakers actually gives a Terran that free fourth base basically. So while he was missing that fourth base on FS, he will not be missing that fourth base on Circuit Breaker. So could be a game changer for Relentless and kind of the way he plays. So excited to see if he'll take advantage of that fourth base and what he'll do kind of going into the long game here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Circuit Breaker is definitely a relentless style map. As I've mentioned multiple times in recent casts, is the fact that he has so many avenues for attack with these vultures. You know what I'm saying? He could go through the high ground. Let's say that Tim spawns at the bottom right here. He could go through the double bridges, which is the obvious choice, right? He could go through the high ground, which is back there. He can go through the other high ground and then wrap around through the fourth base to the mineral only with the vultures. So I definitely think that it's a vulture harass heavy map. It's definitely favored for a vulture harass player, and I'd be interested to see if Relentless can take advantage of that.
Yeah, here we go. See what happens.
Okay, in the bottom right, we have Dim Sum as the Brown Terran, aka Relentless.
And then at the 1 o'clock Teal Protoss, we've got Tim, the American Hope.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, he is definitely one of the top 10 players in the USA right now, easily, without a doubt. Not even limiting it to Protoss players, just top 10 Brood War players from the USA at the moment. So he's absolutely the hope in the USA right now, in my opinion. I mean, given his astronomical rise, where do you see Tim at the end of the year? Do you think that Tim's going to keep climbing up? Do you think that he might have stalled out a little bit? Like, what do you think is going to be in his future?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've played Tim quite a bit over the past week or two, and I do find him to, continue to making slight improvements. I do think though he is starting to hit some sort of plateau or wall,
Mm-hmm.
which is normal. It's fine, right? That's going to happen. But I think if he keeps on pushing and he breaks this plateau and maybe breaks one more plateau, wouldn't be surprised if Tim really, gets into the top ranks and just, North America overall. So
Mm-hmm.
could be a good goal for him by year end.
So, Least in the chat actually has done a better Shugo impression than you did, which is quotation marks, if he stops playing those autistic FFAs, then he'll be improved. End quotation, which is somewhat true, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, which is probably maybe he is hitting those plateaus because all he does is play micro macro FFA and he seems to play his Zerg off race more than he plays Protoss
Mhm.
nowadays. So it's all factors to hitting the plateau.
Yeah, I mean, I At some points you do need a break though. So like after such an astronomical rise, you know what I mean? Like, it's I think it's somewhat healthy to take a little break. You know, appreciate the game for the beauty that it is, the versatility, the flexibility, the the options that you have. Right? If you only play 1v1 like it's your job, like your 9 to 5, you're gonna eventually become miserable and lose motivation. Right? So I like the fact that Tim is mixing it up a little bit. You know, helping newer players out, playing micro macro, but at the end of the day, it is an impediment to continuing to rise in ladder. You're not going to get from 2000 to 2300, pardon me, by playing micro macro or FFA or off race, right? So it comes with a balance, but it's also a personal choice, and I do have to respect it a little bit because I mean I've been known to play garbage games for years in a row, so I can't judge, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a little bit about the game here. So we've got Relentless going for Factory. He's taken off two from the gas, right?
Hmm.
So we'll probably expect to see some CC build out of him.
Yes.
And then we've got Tim again. Is he going for 21 next? It looks like.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the tell right there. When you send that probe that early out to the natural, you mine the mineral. In other words, like you place the nexus, you press C, it brings it back. This is a definite 21 next coming out of Tim right here. And Relentless, I like the fact that he's going to place the CC on the low ground with the 3 Marines out front right there. It's He used his scouting information to his advantage. He knows exactly what Protoss is going to have, and the Dragoon didn't even have the opportunity to fire a shot. It just got shook real quick. The Dragoon started getting shot. He's like, you know what? I want to keep the shields alive on this Dragoon. I need this for the mid game in case it is something more scary. And I don't think that Tim actually ever got into finding out what exactly the Terran player is doing. So he could be thinking strong FD, 2 fac. All of those things are still a possibility with just 3 Marines being seen, right?
Yeah, that's right. Protoss does not know what's happening. Not yet, anyway. So it's tough. SCV sneaks in, so now Relentless does know that Tim officially did the 21 next with 2 gate behind it.
Yeah, no
So
robo.
yeah, no robo. And one thing that I'll say is Relentless has chosen CC into Vultures with speed. It's a little
Yeah, that
strange.
it's definitely questionable. I would definitely opt for mines just to be safe. You're down 2-0 just from the perspective of a grudge match, right? I would definitely want mines first. Mine
Yeah, and
expand is
it's
a solid build, but like going speed expand is really risky, I think. Against 2 gateways on top of it, you're not abusing the lack of robo from the Protoss.
yeah. So from Terran perspective, once I mean it's okay. He chose the build he chose. You can't change it. But once he saw the 2 gate, he should have thrown down a bunker because
Yeah.
it's kind of like, hey, my opponent's going 2 gate. He's at least going to try and pressure me of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So no bunker here is tough. You don't have a tank, so it's tough. I don't think it was the right build. I'm not sure what he had in mind, but now you see him starting the mine upgrade. It's half done, but I feel like he's already in kind of a weaker position because he already lost 2 vultures. I guess he was
Hmm.
going sort of like 4 or 5 volt sneaky little attack because I don't think expect this, but
I'm, I'm sorry to laugh, but someone in the chat said, "Hey casters, what was Tim's Nexus timing?" I didn't see it in the chat. They're trolling you, Shugo. Everyone knows your weakness. It's people having autistic discussions about about the Nexus timing. It's 21 next, guys. Just in case anyone was actually serious about it, it's 21 next. But Shugo, going back to what you were saying, I absolutely agree. The bunker that has been built now should have been up there a minute ago. It should have been helping him hold without having to waste his speed advantage with the vultures. If he still had those 2 vultures, that would have been 4 vultures running into Tim's main right now, not just 2. The 2 vultures themselves did not do that much because there was 2 dragoons or 3 dragoons by Tim held back, which I really like. That's something that he commented on in my game against Flash for the win. He said that he liked the fact that I left some dragoons back just to defend against vulture stuff. And
by the way, Jealous, I think maybe we're just real bad casters, but we missed the double proc robo by Tim.
You're right. I did miss that entirely, and it is gonna be the double proxy robo. This fucking savage, straight up monstrous. This is when you're up 2-0, and you initially might have respected your opponent, but you just don't anymore. I think this might be really bad. The siege tanks are out of position. The siege mode is just now finishing. Not gonna be in time. He's gonna pull the siege tanks away for the dragoons. Great play by Tim. Even putting out these two forward dragoons and losing them was enough to force the stop of the mining, but I don't think he actually killed all that much. But that story might change soon. I mean, with two Reavers, two Robos, another two SCVs go down. Oh, another three. That's so brutal. Tim, the savage.
Yeah, and then when you get two Reavers in there, it's tough. Then you start fighting the tanks kind of like head
Yeah,
on, like
yeah.
what Tim's doing right now.
That's unreal. This tank is at 2 HP, so that's almost dead. Alright, the Reaver does go down for it. I like the Goliath choice from Dim Sum, great reaction, but this Reaver is still a problem. It's just like a constant nuisance in your base, and you can't even lay mines against it because when you lay a mine, the Reaver shoots the Scarab at the Vulture, and the Vulture is right next to the mine, so they both die to the splash. So this is a rough spot to be in for Tyrant right here. Already almost like 25 supply down. Two more Reavers show up. Are you kidding me? He's fighting with the SCVs.
And when you're fighting SCVs versus Reavers, it's time to say GG and head on out.
Yeah, speed shuttle on as well. It's not like Tim's all in behind this. He does have two bases. He's going for a Nexus behind this. Did he? No, I was about to say, I thought he lost a Reaver, but he actually, yeah, absolutely did not. He has two full health Reavers still out here. And Jesus Christ, Tim is a fucking savage. Holy shit. I mean, that was a 3-0. Like, I expected Tim to win, no offense to Relentless, but I thought the games would go into the mid-game every time. And I thought that the mid-game pressure from Relentless would be sufficient to, like, at least make Tim hurt a lot, right? But Tim's not interested in letting it get to that point. Maybe, like, that first game he played really standard and he found that, Relentless is not a pushover, so he just busted out the cheesy shit.
Well, that's top 10 USA for you. Great swift victory by Tim.
Yeah, and Foxbat in the chat, he's, by the way, our grudge match officiator. He says Tim continues his perfect record. Every single time that Tim has played in any event that is centered around the El Master Discord, whether it be All-Stars, whether it be grudge matches, Tim has won every game. He won the 2v2 with me. He won the 3v3 with me. He won his grudge match against me 3-0. He won his grudge match against Dim Sum 3-0. So at this point, he's at that 10-0 in show matches and grudge matches all over the place. Fucking nuts. This guy's on point.
Gonna have to start pairing him against the coaches. Give this man some losses.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I would love to watch a Dim Sum versus Shugo. That would be something I would want to watch. Anyone that agrees with me, put a 1 in the chat, because I'm the one that organizes these things. I don't want to waste my time. If you guys don't care about who wins between Shugo and Tim, that's up to you. But I personally am interested. I would want to see that matchup. And obviously, the way I would say is, Shugo, you have to start with your TVP. That silly. Well, I don't want to say silly. That brainless TVP that you have that is just actually super strong. I want to see if you can take a game off Tim after seeing this against Relentless.
Yeah, I mean these days Tim's PVT versus my T, it doesn't go well for me. My Terran can't really beat Tim these days. He's improved insanely. So
Okay, I did not know that you guys actually played that. I thought that. Oh, Tim is in the chat talking the shit. He said last time we played TVP, he lost 5-0. So I don't know if this motivates me more to see you step up your Terran play and waste your time not playing Protoss and see you get stomped by Tim as well, or if I want to see the PvP and see Tim try to rise up and face you. I think like both options are really appealing, so we'll have to talk about that later. But in the meantime, this grudge match is over. It's been sealed and done by Tim. I was wrong. Relentless no longer a god to anyone but me. He's still a god to me, but to everyone else, Tim is your new god. That's it. And Yeah, nothing much more to say about that. Shugo, you got any final thoughts? Any comments for the players? Maybe suggestions for Relentless? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, both of the players we saw, very good players. I think both can improve in certain ways. Like, for instance, in game one FS, Tim could have been much better with his macro, with his gateway count. He could have tried to maybe to bust the third, be a little bit more aggressive there, because sometimes this macro style Protoss isn't necessarily the best if you face like a super aggressive Terran, right? So
Hmm.
just incorporating different styles, not just always going for like a blind third nexus. It's dangerous. So maybe just a little bit of feedback there for Tim, and then for Relentless. I think I said it earlier, but Relentless needs to focus just a little bit more on his builds, right? Like in this last game we just saw, Vulture speed off of a fast command center. Like that build didn't even make sense.
Against two gates with no robo, right? You obviously go mines, in my opinion. It's easy to zoom out and look at it from the observer's perspective, but he saw the two gates. He saw the lack of robo. Mines would have been the play there, I think, and Mines could have put him in a beautiful position. He could have gone for a fast third behind Mines, I think.
Yep, that's right. Well, I mean, there was a proxy robo, but aside from
Yeah.
that, I mean, then in game one we saw him really waste a lot of vultures trying to harass. I mean, sure he got maybe 10, 15 probes, something like that, but
Hmm.
really, at what expense to leaving your 20 tanks without support? So
Hmm.
just starting to think about these things and really being aware that at some point in the game you have to know to stop pressing and take your fourth base, your fifth base, and really just kind of take it back, and not, you got to take your foot off the gas. And I think that was one thing that I saw from Relentless. Kind of wasn't taking his foot off the gas, and because he didn't take his foot off the gas, he took that really late fourth base. So just kind of both things on both sides for both players.
Yeah, I think like the more you're talking about it, the more I realize that like maybe Relentless is kind of like a filter player. Like I don't want to boil him down to one thing, but like anyone who's not good enough to handle his pressure is gonna lose. Anyone who is good enough to handle his pressure, like Tim was in game one, is gonna come out on top because, as you mentioned, I didn't see a late game plan from Relentless in game one, which is like our best indicator of how games would go for Relentless. Obviously, like you're not always gonna get proxy two roboed or two gate like 9-9 gated in your like non-natural third or whatever, right? Most of his games don't go that way, so I feel like his general like mode of play is I'm gonna out task you. I'm gonna have vultures everywhere. I'm gonna hurt you a lot, and it's gonna throw you off your game. He did not get that opportunity in game two and three. Tim preempted him with his own dirty, dirty play. So definitely something to think about for Relentless. And for Tim, I mean, like game one, he won, but he didn't look as solid as I might have expected from a player of his caliber. Like Relentless definitely showed the fact that he can compete at that level, if it not win.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say, right, because, and this is a general statement, I'm not saying who I think is better or not, but
Hmm.
because you see a player like Tim 3-0 Relentless, you can't just simply infer from this that automatically Tim's the superior player or something
Yeah.
like that. Think more broadly than that. I oftentimes see people just, that a guy loses one matchup and, oh, he sucks. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know that, right? Like his TVP could just be his weakest matchup. That's Tim's best matchup, but
Hmm.
then this could be superior against Zerg players, right? So
Hmm.
you so don't just take this one loss or win as some like definitive type of answer of who's better or who's worse, right? So just I want to remind people of that, because I just far too often see people making judgments of who they think is better or worse based on a couple of games.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take this opportunity to inform everyone that, by the way, Tim is now a coach for CPL, and Relentless is still a player. So this was definitely a coach versus player show match. And I'm going to link, first of all, the Elmaster Beginner Discord in the chat real quick. I'm going to send the invite out just so this is where these things are being organized. You know, we have players of all calibers having matches against each other. We do fun stuff together. I don't know how else to explain it. And the I'm going to also link the CPL Discord. I'm gonna just make sure that I highlight which one is which. This is the Lmaster Beginner Discord that I just linked. And now I'm going to post an invite for the other Discord, which is the CPL Discord. It's an ongoing team league where players join teams that have people in them that are coaches or other players similar to your level. So if you're not familiar with that, I definitely suggest you go there. You can sign up for the waitlist. Season 4 signups are already closed, but you can sign up for the waitlist. You will most likely be placed on a team and join. And you don't have to be a good player. You can be a first day player, and someone will help you out there. So definitely suggest both those discords to everyone that's watching that's not already in the know. And I think that just about wraps it up for us. I mean, I already asked you for your closing thoughts, Shugo. So I'm just gonna say, you have any shout outs? You have anyone that you want to mention? I mean, your mom's available, right, for shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly just have a shout out only for Okra and Anthem. I find those two players to really be like on the come up. It doesn't matter. Once again, it doesn't matter if they're losing. I see just something in them. So keep on practicing, guys. You guys are doing well.
Yep. All right, and I'll give a shout out to Lmaster, Lmaster's Discord, so on and so forth. Shout outs to all the viewers who tuned in today. Shout outs to all the players who played today. Relentless Tim, thank you guys for the great show. And yeah, that's just about it. So I'm gonna put on some music and we'll head on out.
See you guys.